The European Union has recently introduced a powerful new rule called the Right to Repair Law, which is changing how companies handle repairs and spare parts across Europe. This EU law is designed to stop manufacturers from completely controlling who can repair a product after it's sold. In simple words, it says that if you buy something, you should not be fully blocked from fixing it through independent repair shops. This law is now becoming a major topic in the automotive world because it directly challenges how luxury car brands operate in the world of supercars. Very few names carry as much weight as Bugatti. It is a brand known for extreme speed, extreme price tags, and extreme exclusivity. Owning a Bugatti is not just about driving a car. It is about entering a closed world where almost everything is controlled by the manufacturer. Every part, every repair, every service decision is tightly managed by the company itself. Now, this new EU direction is starting to challenge that control in a serious way. It creates a situation where independent mechanics may finally gain more access to parts and repair information that was previously locked away. For years, Bugatti and other luxury car brands have built systems that keep repairs inside official networks. This means only approved dealers and authorized workshops are allowed to access certain tools, software, and spare parts. Independent repair shops, even if highly skilled, are often blocked from working on these cars. The argument from manufacturers is that these vehicles are too advanced and require strict control to maintain safety and performance standards. However, critics argue that the system limits ownership freedom and makes repairs unnecessarily expensive and difficult. At the center of this growing debate, attention has also been drawn to independent car builder Mat Armstrong, who is known for rebuilding damaged supercars and sharing the process online. His work shows how complex and restricted these repair systems can be when dealing with brands like Bugatti. In some cases, accessing parts or official support becomes extremely difficult, even for experienced builders. This has turned the story into a real-world example of the larger conflict between manufacturer control and independent repair rights. As this situation develops, it is no longer just about one brand or one builder. It is becoming a wider discussion about who really controls a car after it's sold. The EU law is slowly pushing the system toward more openness, while manufacturers are trying to protect their control. This clash between regulation and exclusivity is now shaping the future of high-end automotive repair in Europe and beyond. The idea behind the European Union's right to repair law is actually quite simple, but its impact is very large. It says that when a product is sold in the market, especially in Europe, the company that made it should not completely lock out independent repair shops. Instead, they must provide access to spare parts, repair information, and sometimes diagnostic tools so that trained professionals outside the official network can also fix the product. The goal is to make repairs easier, reduce waste, and give customers more freedom over what they own. In theory, this sounds fair and balanced, but in practice, it becomes complicated when applied to highly advanced machines like supercars. Modern cars, especially luxury and performance vehicles, are no longer simple mechanical systems. They are highly digital machines filled with software, sensors, and encrypted systems. Even a small repair can require special tools or factory-level access codes. This is where manufacturers like Bugatti have built strong control systems over the years. They argue that only trained and approved technicians should handle these cars, because even a small mistake can affect safety or performance. From their point of view, this strict system protects both the car and the owner. However, from the perspective of independent mechanics and car enthusiasts, this system feels too restrictive. Many skilled builders believe that if a person has the knowledge and ability, they should be allowed to repair the car they own. They argue that ownership should include full control, not just driving the vehicle, but also deciding how it is maintained and fixed. This disagreement between control and freedom is exactly what the EU law is trying to balance. The situation becomes even more interesting when we look at how different brands operate. Companies like Ferrari, Porsche, and Koenigsegg also use controlled repair networks, but each has slightly different levels of openness. Some provide limited access to independent workshops, while others keep most systems tightly locked. The EU law does not completely remove these systems, but it pushes them toward more transparency and accessibility. This means the entire luxury car industry is slowly being forced to adjust its long-standing business models as this change unfolds. It creates tension between tradition and regulation. On one side, manufacturers want to protect their engineering standards and brand identity. On the other side, regulators and independent repairers want more openness and fairness in the repair process. This conflict is not just technical. It is also about power, control, and the future meaning of ownership in a world of advanced machines. This growing conflict becomes much more visible when we look at real-world repair cases involving supercars. In the past, many owners of high-performance vehicles accepted that they had to depend fully on the manufacturer for repairs. If something went wrong, the car had to go back to an official service center, no matter the cost or distance. Independent workshops, even highly skilled ones, were often completely blocked from accessing parts or digital systems. This created a situation where ownership existed on paper, but practical control remained with the manufacturer. Bugatti, in particular, is known for having one of the most exclusive service systems in the automotive world. Every repair is tightly controlled, and access to parts is heavily restricted. The company's approach is built around precision and safety, but also means that independent repairers face serious barriers. Even experienced engineers who understand high-performance cars can find themselves unable to complete repairs because essential parts or software access are simply not available outside the official network. This has led to frustration among some owners and builders who feel that the system is too closed. This is where the story of Mat Armstrong becomes relevant in a broader sense. He is known for rebuilding crashed supercars and documenting the process for millions of viewers online. His work highlights both the potential and the challenges of independent repair. In some cases, he has successfully rebuilt complex cars that many people thought were beyond repair. But when it comes to brands like Bugatti, the process becomes much more complicated. Restrictions on parts and system access create obstacles that are not just technical, but also structural. It is not about skill alone, but about whether the system allows a repair to happen at all. As his projects gained attention, they unintentionally became part of a larger public discussion about repair rights. Viewers began to question why such expensive and advanced cars should be so difficult to repair outside official channels. This is where the European Union's right to repair law connects to real life. It shows that this is not just a theoretical legal debate, but something that affects actual people working on actual vehicles. The gap between manufacturer control and independent repair capability is no longer hidden. It is visible, documented, and widely discussed. This visibility is important because it changes how people think about ownership. A car worth millions of dollars is still owned by the buyer, but the level of control they actually have depends heavily on manufacturer systems. The EU law is slowly trying to shift that balance, making sure ownership is more meaningful in practice, not just in legal documents. As the European Union pushes forward with the right to repair rules, the automotive industry is now facing a period of adjustment that it cannot ignore. The main idea of the law is to make sure that independent repairers are not fully blocked from fixing complex products, including modern cars. This means manufacturers may need to provide spare parts and technical information to qualified workshops outside their official network. While this sounds like a simple change, in reality, it affects the entire business structure of luxury car brands, especially those operating at the highest level of performance and exclusivity. For companies like Bugatti, Ferrari, Porsche, and Koenigsegg, this shift is not small. Their entire service systems have been built over many years around controlled access. Every repair, every part, and every software update has traditionally gone through authorized channels. This system allows manufacturers to protect quality and ensure that their vehicles perform exactly as designed. However, the new EU direction challenges this control by introducing more openness into the repair ecosystem. It does not completely remove manufacturer authority, but it reduces their ability to fully block independent access. One of the biggest concerns of manufacturers is how this will work in practice. Even if parts must be made available, questions remain about pricing, timing, and technical support. A company could technically follow the law, but still make independent repair difficult by setting high prices or limiting software access. This creates a new kind of challenge where compliance exists on paper, but real-world accessibility may still be limited. This is why many experts believe the real impact of the law will only be seen after enforcement begins and real cases are tested at the same time. Independent mechanics and car builders see this change as a major opportunity. Skilled workshops that were previously excluded from working on high-end cars may finally gain access to tools and information they need. This could lead to a stronger independent repair industry, where expertise is no longer limited to official dealerships. It may also reduce repair costs for owners and increase the lifespan of expensive vehicles, which is one of the main goals of the EU policy. However, this transition is not without tension. Manufacturers argue that too much openness could risk safety, especially in cars with extremely advanced engineering systems. Independent repairers argue the opposite, saying that skill and knowledge should matter more than official approval. Between these two positions, the industry is now entering a new phase where the balance between control and freedom is being actively redefined as this legal and industry shift continues. The real question becomes what it actually means for car owners in everyday life. On paper, the European Union's right to repair law is meant to give more freedom, more choice, and more fairness to people who own complex products like cars. But in reality, the situation is more layered than it looks. Even if independent repairers gain access to parts and technical information, the practical side of working on ultra-advanced supercars remains extremely difficult. These are not normal vehicles with simple mechanical systems. They are highly engineered machines where software, electronics, and precision components all work together in a tightly controlled system. For owners of high-end vehicles, this change could slowly shift the experience of ownership. In the past, if something went wrong, the only realistic option was to return to the official manufacturer network. This often meant high costs, long waiting times, and very limited flexibility. Independent repair was not truly an option in most cases, even if skilled mechanics existed nearby. Now, with the EU law pushing for more openness, that structure may begin to change. Owners could eventually have more choices about where and how their cars are repaired, which may lead to more competition and potentially lower repair costs. Still, this does not mean the system will suddenly become fully open. Manufacturers are likely to adapt in ways that still protect their control. They may provide parts, but at carefully set prices. They may share repair data, but in limited or structured formats. They may allow access, but only under strict conditions. This kind of controlled openness is expected to become the new normal. It is not a complete loss of control for manufacturers, but it is also not full freedom for independent repairers. Instead, it sits somewhere in between, where both sides have to adjust to a new balance. In the background of all this, stories like Mat Armstrong's continue to attract attention, because they show how these issues play out in real life. His projects highlight the difference between theoretical ownership and practical repair freedom. While the law is changing the system at a high level, real-world cases show how difficult it still is to work outside official networks when dealing with extremely advanced machines. This gap between law and practice is where most of the future conflict is likely to happen. In the end, this entire situation is not just about Bugatti or one YouTuber or even one law. It is about a much bigger shift in how modern products are owned and repaired. As technology becomes more complex, the question of control becomes more important. The European Union is trying to push the system toward more openness, while manufacturers are trying to protect their engineering ecosystems. The outcome of this balance will decide how much freedom future owners truly have over the things they BUI as the right to repair debate grows stronger in Europe. It is also starting to influence how people think about ownership in a much wider sense. In the past, owning a car was simple. You bought it, and you could take it to almost any mechanic for repairs. The system was open, mechanical, and easy to understand. But modern cars have changed everything. Today's vehicles are filled with computers, sensors, and software systems that control almost every function. This means ownership is no longer just physical. It is also digital. And once digital systems are involved, control becomes much more complicated. This is where the European Union's new direction becomes important. The idea behind the law is to make sure that ownership still has real meaning. If someone spends a large amount of money on a product, especially something as expensive as a supercar, they should not be completely dependent on a single company for its repair. The law tries to break that monopoly by giving independent repairers a chance to access the tools they need. But even with this legal change, the real world does not change overnight. Companies that have spent years building closed systems cannot simply open everything at once without restructuring their entire business model. For luxury car brands, this means a careful balancing act. On one hand, they must follow the law and avoid legal trouble in European markets. On the other hand, they want to maintain the exclusivity and technical control that defines their brand identity. This is especially important for companies like Bugatti, where every vehicle is not just a product, but a symbol of engineering perfection and rarity. Opening up repair systems too much could, in their view, risk losing that level of control. At the same time, independent builders and repair specialists see this as a long-awaited opportunity. For years, many skilled mechanics have been excluded from working on some of the world's most advanced cars simply because they were not part of the official network. Now, with legal pressure increasing, they may finally gain more access to the tools and information they need. This could create a stronger independent repair ecosystem where knowledge and skill matter more than official approval. But even with these changes, one thing remains clear. The transition will not be smooth. There will likely be disagreements, legal challenges, and technical barriers along the way. Some manufacturers may fully comply, while others may find creative ways to maintain control within legal limits. This ongoing tension between regulation and resistance is what makes the right to repair movement one of the most important industrial shifts of the modern era. As the situation continues to develop, it is becoming clear that the impact of the European Union's right to repair law goes far beyond just one company or one industry. It is slowly reshaping how people think about products, ownership, and long-term value. In the past, most customers did not question how repairs worked behind the scenes. If something broke, they simply followed whatever process the manufacturer provided. But now, with more information available and more public cases being discussed online, people are starting to ask deeper questions about control and freedom. One of the biggest changes is the growing awareness of how lock systems actually work. Many modern products, especially cars, are not just physical machines anymore. They are connected systems that rely heavily on software and digital permissions. This means that even if a person legally owns a product, their ability to repair it can still be restricted by software locks or access limitations. The EU law is trying to reduce this gap by forcing more openness in how repair data and spare parts are shared. But changing technical systems that have been built over many years is not easy, and will take time before the full impact is seen in the automotive world. This shift is especially important because cars are among the most complex consumer products ever created. High-performance brands like Bugatti operate at the extreme end of engineering, where even small components are highly specialized. This makes manufacturers argue that strict control is necessary to maintain safety and performance. At the same time, independent repairers argue that skill and expertise should not be blocked simply because a workshop is not officially approved. This disagreement is at the center of the entire debate. Public attention has also played a major role in bringing this issue forward. Online content, especially from creators who rebuild or repair high-end vehicles, has made the problem more visible. Instead of being hidden inside corporate service systems, repair restrictions are now being shown in real time to millions of viewers. This has changed the conversation from a technical industry issue into a public discussion about fairness and access. People who may never own a supercar are still interested because it reflects a broader question about ownership in the modern world. As more cases come into public view, it becomes harder for companies to fully control the narrative. Every repair story, every denied part request, and every independent rebuild add another layer to the discussion. The EU law is not just changing rules. It is also changing expectations. And once expectations change, industries are forced to adapt. Whether quickly or slowly, that the right to repair movement continues to grow. One of the most important things to understand is how slowly but steadily it is changing the relationship between manufacturers and customers. In the past, manufacturers had almost complete control over the repair process. They decided who could fix a product, what parts would be used, and how much information would be shared. Customers had little choice except to accept those conditions, especially when dealing with high-end or highly technical products. But now, that balance is starting to shift, and the European Union's law is one of the main reasons behind it. What makes this change so significant is not just the law itself, but how it affects behavior in the real world. Even before full enforcement, companies begin to adjust their systems in anticipation. They may start preparing new ways to distribute parts, update repair policies, or modify software access systems. This means the impact of the law often begins before the official enforcement date. In industries like automotive manufacturing, where systems are deeply complex and tightly controlled, even small changes can take a long time to implement properly. For luxury car brands, this adjustment is especially sensitive. These companies have built their reputation on exclusivity, precision, and controlled service networks, allowing independent repair access challenges that model directly. It raises concerns about quality control, brand protection, and technical safety. However, at the same time, ignoring the law is not an option in European markets. This creates a situation where manufacturers must find a middle ground between legal compliance and business protection. That middle ground is often where the real changes happen, even if they are not immediately visible to the public. Independent repairers, on the other hand, see this period as a breakthrough opportunity. For many years, skilled mechanics and builders have worked around restrictions by using creativity, experience, and limited resources. Now, with legal support slowly increasing, they may finally gain more structured access to tools and information that were previously unavailable. This could lead to a stronger independent repair ecosystem, where more workshops are capable of handling complex repairs without relying entirely on official networks. However, the transition is not expected to be smooth or uniform. Different manufacturers may respond in different ways, and enforcement may vary depending on interpretation of the law. Some companies may fully embrace the change, while others may look for ways to maintain as much control as possible within legal boundaries. This uneven response means the industry will likely go through a long period of adjustment, where rules, expectations, and real-world practices continue to evolve over time as this shift continues. Another important layer of the discussion is the role of technology itself in modern cars. Today's high-performance vehicles are not just machines made of metal and mechanical parts. They are highly advanced systems that rely heavily on computers, sensors, and software. Almost every function in a modern supercar is controlled or influenced by digital systems. From engine performance to braking systems and even basic diagnostics, everything is connected through software. This level of complexity is one of the main reasons manufacturers argue that repair control must remain strict. However, this same complexity is also what makes the right to repair debate so important. When a product depends so heavily on software, control over that software becomes just as important as control over physical parts. If independent repairers do not have access to diagnostic tools or system data, even simple repairs can become extremely difficult or impossible. The European Union's approach tries to address this by requiring manufacturers to share essential repair information. But what counts as essential is often open to interpretation. And this is where future conflicts are likely to appear to end the automotive industry. This creates a very delicate balance. On one side, manufacturers need to protect the integrity of their systems. They must ensure that repairs do not compromise safety, performance, or reliability. On the other side, independent workshops argue that they are fully capable of handling these systems if given proper access. Many of these workshops have decades of experience and deep technical knowledge, sometimes even more practical experience than official service centers. The debate is not about skill, but about access. This is why the right to repair law is so closely watched by both sides. It does not completely remove manufacturer control, but it forces a change in how that control is applied. Instead of total restriction, companies may need to move towards structured access systems where independent repairers can obtain the information they need under certain conditions. This is a major shift from the traditional closed network model that has dominated the luxury automotive world for years as this evolution continues. It becomes clear that the real impact of the law will depend not just on legal wording, but on enforcement and interpretation. How regulators apply the rules and how manufacturers respond to them will determine whether the repair industry becomes more open or remains partially restricted in practice. This uncertainty is what makes the next phase of the right to repair movement so important to watch.